I think with that, like if we're all happy, then I think let's get started. So yeah, very glad to welcome you all here this evening. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to start by briefly introducing the speakers and what they're going to be talking about this evening. Start with, we have Felix, who's our, an EMA researcher who's part of our team, but he's also a professor of psychology at the New Bulgarian University. And he's going to begin by speaking, introducing the report a little bit that we published in January this year, but also reflecting on the importance of qualitative experience-based research. Following that, we've got Mirka, who will be then sharing her experience working directly with people on the move in Bulgaria, in particular in detention, in the context of Bulgaria, and also to introduce her, she's been working for many years with people on the ground, in Italy, but also been based in Bulgaria for the last year. We'll also then have Hamid, who's going to be speaking about the situation of people on the ground in Bulgaria, particularly regarding the realities of repatriation, as well as the experiences of registration in Bulgaria and the work of mission wings and what they're doing there. Next, we'll hear from Victor, and he is a Bulgarian publisher, cultural producer, and human rights activist. He will be providing insight into the legal framework, including asylum rights and their intersection with broader human rights issues such as LGBTQ plus rights. And then finally, we'll be talking to Tiago. He is the coordinator for the consortium from the sea to the city, who will help us zoom out a little bit and look at the wider regional picture, discussing how Bulgaria fits within the Balkan route and how the role of the municipalities and institutions. So, welcome everybody. There's a lot of me speaking, and hopefully it'll be a lot less of that. But I think from that, let's get started. As I said, it's going to be a bit of a Q&A discussion. So we've got various questions, which will all be directed to our speakers, and yeah, hopefully looking forward to really hearing their insight. Just a little note for audience members, if you want to ask any questions trying to clarify for anything, you're more than welcome to put them in the chat. Sarah's going to collect them all together, and then we'll clarify some few points at the end. This is just to kind of continue the flow of the conversation a little bit. So to get started, Felix. So if you wouldn't mind introducing the report and also going a little bit more, like we said, into the value of the qualitative research and how it can help.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I have been since 2017 or so. I have been doing various forms of collaborations in research with supporting refugee advocacy and doing research in camps in Greece. And a couple of years ago, I started gathering ideas and trying to gather some local Bulgarian people around to engage in similar kind of qualitative interviewing of people on the move towards a report. We collected interviews between April and August 25. They are not incredibly many. This is a report based on 10 in-depth interviews. I transcribed them between April and September 25. A first public presentation of the results was done in an online event. Well, actually it was in an underground festival in Oslo, Sweden, Norway. But we did an online presentation, which was my very quick preliminary analysis. And the final report has been published in January this year in English, and then in March in Bulgarian. Thanks to the wonderful work of Vicky Veltseva and other Bulgarian collaborators. Okay, so one thing I have to do is definitely thank a lot of people who collaborated in this report. Medical Solidarity International, Non-M Kitchen were supporting me in my visits to Harmony, where I was doing most of the interviews. people collaborating in interpretation, mostly Sukaina Alouta, also Mirka Delpasqua, who is here with us and we'll talk later, Victoria Veltseva, Maxime Bogdad. I am not going to summarize the report because it's supposed to be your homework for today, so you must have read it, or at least I'm going to try we are going to try to persuade you to read it, okay? And so I would like to make a few comments about the value of qualitative research. I believe that qualitative research is much more than reporting. We're not just gathering information, we are providing insights which are not only insights which can only be provided by the people who are in there, but also insights which are built with the reasoning, with the expert reasoning and wisdom of the people who are suffering from the problems. Okay, I am persuaded by an approach to social science which is institutional ethnography, where we believe that the sufferers of oppressive situations are the best experts, not only to inform about what is going on, but also to understand and to help us deconstruct and exactly understand how institutions work. So they have privileged access to events and experiences. They have a privileged perspective on what is going on and how it works. I can give a few examples. I don't want to spoil the story, but I can give a few examples. I wouldn't have known how, for example, interpreters are manipulated and incorporated into the management, into the mismanagement of asylum applications to render them impossible. I wouldn't have, we wouldn't understand exactly, we have the suspicion that we are confronting a corrupt system, a system which is neglecting attention to refugees. But by listening to different people and putting together and articulating together their reports, we can understand that the neglect is strategic and how it is organized. We can understand corruption and impunity in different ways, in their details, and the details are only accessible to the people who are in there. I had last week, I'm going to be finishing my 5 minutes. Last week, I came in my university, New Bulgarian University, to an event which was organized by the Political Science Department, where it was a presentation of the way in which the new Pact on Migration is being implemented in Bulgaria, with participants from the UNHCR, from the SAR, from the Agency for Refugees in Bulgaria, from the National Police, Bulgarian National Police, and they did not explain what the new pact is. They gave a lot of detail of the way in which they are trying to manage the legislative information situation in Bulgaria to accord to the mandate of the new pact. And when a critical participant, a brave critical participant, raised her hand and said, what about the pushbacks at the border? What about the mistreatment? What about the neglect in the detention centers? How is it possible that most people who are managed by the Bulgarian asylum system are in detention? The representative from the police simply said, nothing of that is happening, and got very upset and said, you're being emotional, okay? And in my view, I mean, I wish I could have recorded that we're recording today. In my view, what was going on there is we have two alternative incompatible worlds which can hardly communicate with one another, and it is a task for those of us who are defending advocacy for the rights of people on the move to try to put the cards open on the table, show what is going on, not simply the facts, but also how the facts are articulated. And then we can give more details in discussion later.
Thanks, Felix. Sorry, I'm taking in what you said, and that's fascinating. But It's also, well, I wanted to open up a wider question to our speakers if you have any updates since the report has been created, since January 2026, and if you'd want to speak on those.
How it was built?
No, any updates since the publishing of the report in 2026?
Oh, right. Yeah. So I think other people in the room will be able to provide more information, because I work in an office, and I am not so much on the ground as I was last summer when I was interviewing people. Right now, I can see a tendency towards extending detention, normalizing detention, and getting prepared. I think the Bulgarian authorities are very explicit that they are getting prepared for the implementation of the new pact, and they are very concentrated on the process of returns. Okay, we are expecting that many people are going to be returned from Germany to Bulgaria, and from Bulgaria further east, outside of Bulgaria, following the new regulations of the new pact, and we have already seen a process also of moving people in detention away from the big cities, which I also think is a strategy. Okay, so taking people out of the Bushman-Sea Center in Sofia and taking them to Ljubimets. I think this is not just an operative for operative reasons. It has also to do with isolating people and taking them away from the options for solidarity. But I think other people who are more expert will be able to provide more detail about these processes.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other thoughts from the other speakers?
Victor, could you share some updates?
Yes, thank you for giving me the floor. Let me introduce myself just briefly. I'm a human rights activist in Bulgaria, member of Bulgarian Helsinki Committee, and very often on the field with people who needed legal support, social work, etc. And I'm doing that purely voluntarily. So on the question of that we have touched, what is going on after the report was published, I would also like to congratulate Félix on doing this, on making this report possible, because this report is giving the real picture, a part of legal intentions of legislators who have created this legal framework. Unfortunate reality is that Bulgaria is following blindly changes into the European Union policy toward asylum seekers, tightening the law as much as possible, and using the current legal framework actually not to support people who seek asylum and various humanitarian aspects of that, but actually they are creating an environment where people seeking asylum feel intimidated, and I have been able to monitor number of cases where people who are in real need of support and who are real victims of either harassment or persecution, politically motivated, including, are actually subjected to improper treatment or rejection by the authorities, rejections of their claims, rejection of their story, and this is the unfortunate fact of the reality, and this is not changing actually, and I will probably be able to talk later about that. But we see that Bulgarian authorities are actually preparing for much harsher implementation of forthcoming pact of migration. And this is some sort of the recent cases I have being able to participate at, I can see that this is some sort of rehearsal toward implementation in June of the Pact for Migration. And yes, well, I can touch particular stories later on if we have some time. But yes, I would absolutely support what Felix has said now. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. I wondered if Mirka, as having a lot of experience on the ground, you'd also like to talk about, like, contribute to the conversation, sorry.
Yeah, sure. I don't know, maybe later I would like to share some stories in order like to show a bit what is the reality of detention. But about what they were saying, I would like to say that yes, what we are noticing like in the last period is a strong collaboration between Bulgaria and Germany, between Bulgaria and Austria for Dublin procedures. And so many people that are actually detained in administrative detention, they come from other European countries. They were living their life, and one day they got arrested and deported back to Bulgaria. And the situation doesn't end here because they are not aware about what's going on. They're not aware about the right. They just find themselves detained in another country, and this is like very shocking for them. And plus, they receive a lot of pressure, and I constantly talk with people because I have been a project through a phone in order to stay in contact with people. And they also told me that the first week of detention for all the people who are detained is they experience psychological and physical violence, and they are pushed to sign papers for the so-called once they are doubling back, they also have to experience this. And what personally, as I have been working many years in the asylum in Italy, I was a bit surprised, for not saying shocked. It was that many people that I met and that they wrote me the document and they asked for a kind of a support to see if I could help them in the procedure for asylum. Actually, they have stories that in Italy would have an asylum granted immediately, and in detention not. It looks like it's kind of an attempt, but a vain attempt. And I also had, unfortunately, a story that I will share later of a guy that had the real reason to not come back to his country. He was forcibly deported, and now he disappeared. We don't even know if he's still alive or not because he was kidnapped exactly by the person that were persecuting him. So yes, I would like just to share this trend, and maybe after we can talk in details about the reality in detention of what I've experienced in the ground.
Thank you, Mirka. And Hamid, I was also wondering if you'd also want to share some of your experiences on the ground, and yeah, we can go back to Mirka also. And yeah, but from what we can tell, it seems to be very much the story of essentially the denial of the right of asylum in like a very kind of big terms, whether it's cutting off support or denial of people's stories or claims, and then the implementation of Dublin within that.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. There is so many things I'd like to share, but we don't have that much time about whatever people says. But let's look at it like this. First of all, they push everything, as Felix mentioned, to out of the main cities, not only main cities, very close to border. So, for example, now majority of things happening in Ljubimec and Pastrogor, which but all of them is kind of how to put it. So on paper, for example, Pastrogor is a reception center, but in reality, it's a detention center. So people cannot leave it, but legally they should be able, but they cannot. And they push everything out of reach of anybody. I'm talking about NGOs. Why I mentioned this? Because this is kind of the spirit of the new pack. The new pack is going to be out of any kind of monitoring, which is not something new, because as an organization, we're working very close with people. In many cases, we see that how the system was not able to monitor and to find out minorities among people. How many of them was like different religion, or maybe they have different sexual identity or some things like this, and the system was unable to recognize these things. So what I'm saying is, I want to say that already monitoring was a big problem in Bulgaria. Doesn't matter if it's with Frontex, because Frontex are not able to provide that, okay, pushback happening. And they claim that they have zero pushback. Monitoring that level, in reception level, in L level, there is no monitoring, and it will be even worse. And in detention, it's very interesting that majority of people push back, not come back from other countries in Europe. They put them in a very harsh situation, and they force them without like mentioning it, but really force them to sign for the deportation, which is not good, because there is so many technical details inside it that later maybe we can talk about it. But in general, I think there is another aspect which we are not talking about it today that much, but the transition of Bulgaria from a transit country to destination country. Mm-hmm. So also this is something, because so many of these people who live in other countries will came back here, they have a status, they can stay in Bulgaria, but there is no integration plan for them. It doesn't exist in the past, it doesn't exist now, it's not happening in the future. So in all terms, we can see that there is a systematic approach of neglection. And the same things happen because Bulgaria is far away from heart of Europe, so whatever happens here is okay. The same things happen in the border. Whatever is far away from Sofia, whatever happened there will be hidden. I just want to give you an idea of what's happening here without going in details. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamid. I wondered if, Mirka, you also want to, if we come back to you to talk about some of the experiences and stories that you wanted to share to kind of build this overall picture of what's happening.
Yeah, maybe I don't know what is the general knowledge about detention center in Bulgaria. Maybe I can explain also how people end up in detention. Because I was saying before that people can be doubling back in Bulgaria and find themselves in detention, but the detention is also the result also of people that ask for asylum and they got rejected. The procedures are very fast lately, and they got the rejection, and so they are brought to a detention center where they have the choice either to go back to their country or to spend 1.5 years in administrative detention. Actually, it would be 6 months, but they are always extended 6 months and 6 months. We can try, sometimes we tried to appeal the 6 months, but with any results. And another reason why people can end in detention is also when they are found, for example, they transit from Bulgaria and they try to reach another country and to cross up. If police find them, they are brought in detention. And again, we talk about administrative detention. Especially since January, I've also noticed from my contacts that many people were coming from the Romanian border. And some people were also found at the Romanian border, but with documents. They were just foreigners that in the past had asylum in other European countries, but just for racial profiling, they just been to Bulgaria and brought it to Guzmansi, and then through the embassy and everything, they managed to show that they had the legal documents, and they released. But this was a bit worrying to see what's going on at the Bulgarian-Romanian border. And some stories that I can share is the fact that people are very confused when they find themselves in detention, and there is not too much knowledge about their rights. So we try a bit to suggest them, for example, to go to Helsinki Committee to ask for a legal help, to see what is the status, for example, of their asylum procedures. There is not too many. Actually, we realize there are not too many ways to be released. Also because asking asylum and got asylum is almost impossible. And as I was saying before, for example, I had this experience with this guy that was from Iraq, and he was threatened by the militias, and he brought many evidences, included private messages, many evidences about his situation in Iraq. And he got 3 rejections. He was detained. while he was detained, he was several times threatened by police, and they tried once to forcibly deport him. They didn't manage because this guy was kind of smart, and when he found himself in the on the plane, he started making a mess and shouting Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. So the flight, they stopped the flight, and so they brought it back to detention. But they told him, like the guards told him, we will deport you. It's not today, it will be the next day. It will be in the future, but we will deport you. We tried to help him as much as possible, but it was not possible. And he was deported to Iraq. And he contacted me when he was in Iraq, saying that he was very scared and he was hiding himself because he was not sure that this militia could have found him. After 3 days, we received the news that he was kidnapped, and until now, the family is still looking for him. All his relatives are in Europe and has asylum, but he found himself in Bulgaria. He asked for asylum, he didn't receive it, and now we don't know. We don't even know if he's still alive or not. Where is he? The family is still looking for him in Iraq, and actually there are many reports, and we also tried with other people from Iraq that are detained. There are many reports about missing people in Iraq because it's something that is happening seriously. But for the moment, it looks like they're kind of unheard.
Thank you, Mirka. I think Tiago's written a question to Hamid. I'll read it out. You mentioned many people who are sent back to Bulgaria through Dublin regulation and end up with the right to stay, but there's no integration plan for them. Is there any data or numbers on this, or is it only a trend that you see or anticipate? I believe as well, just to add on to that, Mission Wing works quite a lot with the repatriation process, and if you could speak a little bit about that, and then it'd be, yeah.
So I don't have any data or number or statistic about it, and I'm not sure that even if such a statistic exists, even if you ask any state personnel or some, like for example, how many refugees are in Bulgaria, nobody can answer this. So we don't know about it, but I'm going to briefly say what will happen to them. So when people being deported from other countries in Europe, there will 3 things happen to them. So one thing is, if they already have any kind of status in Bulgaria, and that status be valid, they can continue living outside of the camps, or they should live by their own. If they still have an open procedure, they will send them to reception centers. Mainly it will be Harmandi or Vuanarampa. But if they had the status and they didn't renew it, or if their case been terminated, they will end up in detention center, and they will be kind of pushed to sign voluntary return back. So among these people, there was so many of them had a status in Bulgaria before. They left Bulgaria for other countries. That 3 years passed and they didn't renew it. And when they sent them back, they said, okay, you are not asylum, you are not refugee anymore, and you should start new procedure, but also they deport them. So we had a lot of cases, especially among Syrians. So this is about this topic. But I don't know if I should talk about registration and detention and all those things, or no, should we wait for the question related for that?
No, if you could talk about it now, and then it'd be nice. I think we move on to get the legal perspective from Victor. I think it'd be great.
Okay. So let's say the procedure of registration is like this. If somebody been caught somewhere, and they are being lucky not to be pushed back, then they will end up in detention center for a short period of time, like 2 to 3 weeks. And after that, they will start the procedure of asylum, and they will go to reception centers. And this is the procedure of registration. But more than that, they are not doing anything. And for example, there is so many things happening on this way, which we don't know. For example, according to law, a person can directly go to reception center door and say that I'm claiming asylum, and they should register them. But especially in 2022, we witnessed, and 2023, we witnessed a lot of people being pushed back from the gate of the camp. So people reach to the camp, instead of registration, they're being pushed back. And also they can go to police station, and police station should provide them this registration. But also we have a lot of cases that when people go to police station or when they be found, they've been pushed back. We had a lot of cases like this. We talked with them when they was in other countries like Turkey after pushback. So all these things been documented. Already explained about redetention after they've been through Dublin. But another aspect is about when somebody being case, or a lawyer, which make it very hard. And also the procedure should go through DNA test, which involve the embassies and so many other things. But it's going very slow. And one of the reasons it's going very slow is that the stakeholders, so many of the stakeholders should do this. They're absent or organization, when they start to follow these cases after that they've been criminalized, like us, that's why we are following these cases, why, how we know these things, why we know this.
Hamid, the connection is a little funny. Just in interest of time, Katrina, do you mind if I ask Mirka a follow-up?
Yeah, that's fine.
Mirka, could you speak a little on criminalization and abuse of power from authorities?
Yes, maybe I would prefer to talk about it in like relating to detention and what we experience like when we try to visit people in detention. I mean, one of the first things that especially in the center of Livov, I mean, there are, as Hamid was saying, there are two detention centers that are Guzmanci in the Sofia city, and Livov is very south at the border, and then there is Pastrogor that is called the transit center, but at all the effects, it is a detention center because it has fence, people are not allowed to use a phone with a camera, they're not allowed to get out, so it's a detention center. What we have experienced, for example, in Livov is that where we don't have to book a visit, and so we can, on the 2 days that are allowed for the visit, we can go and just give the badge number of the people we would like to visit. Like police without no reason, as they recognize that you are part of an organization, or by the way, a movement, a group that is doing it. They let us wait, especially if it's winter and it's like raining, they can let us wait also for 1.5 hours under the rain or outside. Sometimes they mix the numbers, so we would like to visit some person and they just present ourselves other people. And personally, sometimes I wanted to visit some people that have a very difficult cases. One person who also experienced, unfortunately, violence from police, and they several times they told me that this person was not there, that was transferred to another camp, while I knew that it was there, this person, but they tried not to put me in contact with the person, to not talk with them, because maybe they don't know that I was already in contact through the phone. And another thing that comes to my mind is that, for example, unfortunately, many times when we visit people, then the guys tell us that they are interrogated by police. Police ask about us, why these people like from other countries come to visit you, and they're a bit like threatened, like they're a bit aggressive in the way they interrogate them. And sometimes there are people that tell us, please don't come, because maybe I don't feel that I don't want this kind of pressure from police. And so this is also very sad, because these visits are the only moments that they have to share a different, to share some happiness, and also to receive some food, some clothes, or whatever they need. And they have to sacrifice these moments because of the pressure of police. Other people don't mind, but some people, they don't feel safe. They already suffered a lot inside detention, and they don't want to have something more. And this is very sad. Usually, it's not easy even to get an access to a visit. And sometimes also when we bring, for example, I don't know, a T-shirt, one day they allow the T-shirt, the other day they decide they don't allow the T-shirt. So it's always very complicated. Whatever kind of abuse they can do, they do it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mirka. I think, well, it's like we're building a very large picture of being as isolated as possible in as many ways as possible, whether it is like legally or like socially or in terms of getting aid or anything. But I wondered, Victor, if you'd be able to speak more on the legal framework around this. Like we mentioned, as also from there, if we could maybe afterwards discuss some of the challenges as organizations. But yeah, if you could discuss the legal frameworks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for this. I can continue actually from where Hamid stopped. He was asked a question regarding the integration policies. And there are no specific research, but 2024 report, EIDA report, it's European Database Report, was saying that Bulgaria in 11 consecutive years is implementing zero integration policy. This is not an official policy. You will not find it in the papers, but this is de facto policy that is employed in Bulgaria by Agency for Refugees. So then I shall continue with the legal framework here. On paper, Bulgarian legislators did not design asylum law as a punitive system. The law on asylum and refugees says that the person can ask for protection even after entering green border, so-called irregular entry. And as Hamid said, the authorities should support his asylum claim. However, this is not the fact. This is not the reality. And people are pushed back. I had the last year a case of an Afghani LGBTI person seeking refuge in Bulgaria. I personally wrote his application before he entered Bulgaria. I asked him to print as many copies as possible. And after he presented them to the police, they just teared them down and kicked him out of the border. So this is actually what is going on with such cases. Talking, however, about the legal framework, after people have applied for asylum, they have right to shelter, food, healthcare, interpretation. They have right to remain while their claim is examined. Even detention in the legal design is supposed to be exceptional, individually assessed and justified, and used only for very shortest possible period, with alternatives considered first. However, the authorities are not considering alternatives, and if there is a person registered in some databases, and I have a few cases like that, they keep him in detention without any other option available to such persons. Usually, such persons are registered in some databases, like Israeli databases or databases by United States of America and CIA, and we have no access to that, no legal or official access to that information, but we know the cases where people are kept in detention, and in some exceptional cases, they're released. Like there was a case of a cancer sick person, and it was released after he appealed his detention in with the support of Bulgarian Helsinki Committee. However, the same person was denied asylum right in Bulgaria, and now we are looking for ways to solve a question because he's still sick and he's not cured of his cancer. I should continue then talking about the legal framework. There is another legislation that is regulating stay of foreigners in Bulgaria. It's the Foreigners Act. After asylum seekers have exhausted the procedure and are rejected by the system, then the Foreigners Act would follow the same logic in return cases, and people are subject to returns. Detention is not supposed to be automatic, and Bulgaria also is not allowed to remove someone to a place where he would face persecution, torture, or inhuman treatment. However, the report is showing the real problem in Bulgaria, and this is the protective framework that very often is used actually with a completely different intention: police security and deterrence. And this is the main actual intention. And this is showing this report. It also, the report is saying the same thing. Access to territory remains very constrained. Pushbacks are systematic. And there are persistent reports of violence, unlawful detention, and confiscation of belongings, especially phones. The border police knows that phones in these cases are vital for people to survive. Bulgarian Way report is showing the real testimonies of people and how they're treated looking for asylum. They are displaced. They are displaced by interrogation, and how interpreters actually are mishandling their cases, and they are becoming tools of pressure rather than safeguards or kind of a vital bridge to transfer their stories to the authorities. So the real contrast is very stark. Legislators say that asylum seekers are right holders. The system treats them, however, as security objects, and law says detention should be exceptional. In practice, it becomes a method of control and pressure, and especially pressure when people are returned after Dublin, or they lost their status, or they have unsuccessful asylum claim. Then, although they cannot be legally, for example, Syrians cannot legally return to Syria, they are forced, they are put into condition that they, at the end of the day, they give up their wish to stay in Bulgaria, and they are actually forced to sign so-called voluntary returns. I know another case. I have been personally following that case of a Palestinian man who was forced to.
Just in the interest of time, after this story, we have another question.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No. We have another question for you, and actually, I really want.
I see.
This next.
Yes, I'm listening.
Can you tell this story? Because actually, it sounds very interesting. And then we have one more question.
Yes, exactly. Well, there was a Palestinian man who was detained in prison in Gaza by Hamas. It was before the event started in Gaza years ago. He was detained because he was suspected being homosexual. He actually escaped Gaza. And he managed he escaped to Turkey, and then from Turkey he entered Bulgaria a few years later, of course. However, and he was registered as a Palestinian refugee. He had a card registration, which gives him an automatic protection in Bulgaria. He was supposed to apply only for asylum, and he was supposed to receive automatic protection because of his UNRWA registration. However, he not only was treated unfairly, he was imprisoned because his name was in the Israeli database and communicated to Bulgaria. Not only that, but his whereabouts was leaked to the Israeli authorities. And they were threatening his relatives in Gaza because they were telling him that they know where his brother is, where his son is, and in Bulgaria, and that he will not leave detention. So you can understand this nature of concept of protection. It's not asylum seekers that are protected. It is the state interest and so-called national security put in the focal point of policies. And not only that, but that such policies allow transnational repression in the case of the Palestinian man. And there is another case of a Saudi man that also shows the same pattern. The worst thing is already 50 years in administrative detention, which is something that is absolutely unacceptable. So just these two examples I would give to show you what kind of, to what extreme length the Bulgarian state would go to protect some policies that are not actually in the public interest. I actually don't know why they do this, and there is no explanation for this. The Palestinian man was forced actually to leave to Iraq, so he is now in northern Iraq. He had no chance. Not only that, but his sexual orientation was leaked to other inmates in Busmanci, the accommodation center for foreigners. That's the official name of that place. And so he became also, he was harassed by some of the people who were detained there because of his sexual orientation. So you can understand what sort of pressure some people are subjected to in order to leave Bulgaria, in order to be forced to leave Bulgaria. They are placed in unbearable conditions.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's a lot to take in, as I may have said before, but I'm getting too into what everybody's saying. I think from that, I was wondering, like, as in, if you could explore a little bit more. You mentioned obviously about the intersection between asylum rights and LGBTQ rights, and if you could explore that a little bit. I think we're getting a bit short on time, and I'd really like to bring in Tiago and also hear about the challenges. But it would be great to hear about that.
Yes. Well, thank you. I will try to be as short as possible. When we speak about vulnerable groups, especially LGBTI applicants, the gap between law and practice, it's even more brutal. In principle, these applicants should be treated as with a heightened care, with confidentiality, sensitivity. And this is also by European asylum standards, and authorities are required to take account of personal circumstances and vulnerability, to provide support, to provide sufficient time for them. However, this is not happening actually. In reality, what many people encounter in Bulgaria is largely limited to accommodation, food, and some rudimentary medical help. We have no psychological care, no psychological assistance, and usually assessments are not carried, or if they are carried in the case of the vulnerable people, then this is usually with the reverse logic, and the authorities are trying to prove that their claims or their claims that they are members of vulnerable groups should be treated as an attempt to get an easy access to asylum status, which is absolutely unfair. And actually, this sort of interpretation is prohibited by the law. But we have this practice. It's a systematic practice. The European case law is explicit that such disclosures may happen late, that very often such people are, this is their first opening up and coming out, and they have to be supported by doing this. However, in Bulgaria, this is absolutely not done. There is no whatsoever system of supporting such people. And actually, the case law says that rejects the assumption that that claiming persecution on grounds of homosexuality is simply a defensive tactic to obtain protection. So when authorities treat such disclosures as an opportunistic attempt to gain an advantage in the asylum procedure, it is acting against the logic of the European protection law. But this is the case in Bulgaria, and no one is actually talking about this. This is a hugely problematic subject for me. And so in Bulgaria, actually, what we have is an overblown security dimension that becomes especially dangerous with cases of people who seek asylum protection. Well, especially it's heartbreaking for me, the case of the Palestinian man, because of he tried to protect himself by coming out publicly that he's a gay man. Mm-hmm. And this could be very problematic for his family in Gaza, for himself if he's returned back to Palestine. Actually, he cannot go back to Gaza because of his coming out. You can understand what the authorities done to him in this case.
Thank you, Victor. Yeah, it feels very much like the weaponization of vulnerability, like the use of vulnerability to basically say that you're trying to manipulate being vulnerable, which, yeah, square that circle. But sorry, so in the interest of time, I'd like to turn to Tiago now, and if at the end, I would also just like to ask each one of you in terms of what are the specific challenges you face particularly as part of organizations. But yeah, for now, we'll turn to Tiago just to give you an overview. So Tiago, could you explain a little bit how Bulgaria compares to the wider context in the Balkans and what you're seeing, and your institutional perspective as well of working with various municipalities?
Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this event. So briefly, just to complete my introduction from Katrina earlier, I'm here in the name of From the Sea to the City. So I coordinate this consortium of civil society organizations and researchers and activists across Europe. We are a civil society consortium that works in tandem with municipalities that are self-declared welcoming municipalities and develop policies to receive and include and have people, newcomers, participate. That said, the name From the Sea to the City comes from the sea rescue organizations working with municipalities that were willing to welcome people being rescued. So basically the history, very, very briefly, is that. And I am here today because in 2024, we went through a few months of strategizing, and there was a decision to have a regional focus within From the Sea to the City, since the participation from sea rescue organizations in the consortium had been reduced due to other priorities. We decided to focus on Southeast Europe, which includes, of course, the Balkans and Bulgaria. And this is why I'm here today. So most of my talking points are reflecting the conversations we have with the activists that work in the region, but also an assessment process, an assessment outreach we did in 2024 with many organizations from various countries working on the ground. So basically, all our knowledge comes from their courageous work on the ground. Since criminalization of migration and solidarity is a reality, here I would like to highlight the importance of their work on the ground, and this also explains our regional focus. To go to your question, Katrina, rather than comparing, I think it is important to bring it all together as part of one system that is designed and maintained by the EU. So this is often referred to as the EU Fortress Project. And in this within this project, countries like Bulgaria or Croatia are probably the most violent instances of border control in the region. though the violence is widespread, it is probably also safe to say that these two EU external border countries, along with Greece, are the most brutal in this fortress architecture, because they are entry points to the EU. So they are direct entry points, let's say. In between territories, like Serbia or Bosnia, have other issues. So we also observe a lot of rights violations, also observe criminalization, though less, I would say, than in Bulgaria or Croatia, for instance. But we see other things happening, like readmission agreements, no access to detention facilities in Bosnia, for instance, and many cases in Serbia, where the readmission agreements are used to just send people back, because not only Serbia and Bosnia are in agreement with the EU and EU member states, but they are also they also have their bilateral agreements with other national states. So between Serbia and Bulgaria, for example, there is also an agreement, and they also send people back. So it's not only from the EU countries. So basically, all of that is to say that this is all part of the same fortress project, the same architecture. So the comparison is valid to have comparisons, but at the same time, I think it's just a matter of time until they all align in this deterrence and violent approach, because the EU is actually feeding it through its policies and by asking the external border countries and non-EU countries to work as their gatekeepers. So in this whole debate, EU accession for sure is one of the topics that is relevant. Many in Bosnia or in Serbia doubt that this is politically possible for different reasons. So yeah, getting back into comparisons, I think there are very context sensitive situations. Each country has their own sensitivities toward their neighboring countries, but also toward the EU, as could be the case of Serbia, for example, accessing the EU, having closer ties with Russia, and in their own political system internally. Bosnia has a very complex political system. It's a very decentralized, and Bosnians say that it's particularly complicated and even dysfunctional. So because of different reasons, people from these countries and the activists on the ground sometimes pact. Okay, the pact is new, but this pact is actually not creating anything that didn't happen before. It's just cementing it. It's really just coding legally malpractice. And this is very crucial because many of these things, like the to open a little bit on the return so-called return regulation, that's also not necessarily new. Now it's coming as a package, but Serbia and Bosnia has signed already readmission agreement with the EU in 2007. So it's like almost 2 decades ago. And this return regulation, it comes into force also supported by this architecture that has been put in place slowly in time, and this is how we can get to this. So what we do, and you say like the work with the institutions, we work with local institutions because they're closer to the citizens, and they're more prone to respect access to rights, because the consequence of the exclusion is more visible in the local realm, and it creates more problem to the local authority if people don't access basic rights like healthcare or education. So basically the strategy from the city to the city is to work with local authorities because of that, and also because they are state actors. So we try to gain allies within local administrations to be able to create advocacy points and talking points towards national states, them being state actors as well. So kind of trying to work in a tandem between activism, civil society organizations, with institutions that are state actors against the state, or against the state's vision of what migration should be. To finish?
Oh, sorry, Tiago.
Yeah, I should finish, right? Sorry.
And then we just have one more question for all of you.
Okay. So for instance, we work with them to improve and diffuse these policies that they develop at local level. We have a very good relationship, for example, with the Zagreb administration. We are starting to work on measures to protect people from a possible ICE-style implementation of the so-called return regulation with the Dutch cities, namely Utrecht and Amsterdam, that are leading this policy avenue. So basically what we try to do when we have in-person events in these cities or involving these cities, we try to diffuse their knowledge, bring it all together, also improve their own practice through other examples. And now what we are doing, since we have this focus on the Balkans or Southeast Europe, is that we are trying to come closer to municipalities in the region. So since we already have good relations with Zagreb, for example, and Croatia is one of the most problematic countries there are, we are trying through Zagreb to start reaching out to Bihać, for example, in Bosnia, and to other municipalities. And just now I really finished. Our next yearly meeting, where we strategize for the next year or two, is to take place in Sofia, and that is an opportunity we will take also to try to start articulating or continue an articulation that is with Sofia is very weak still. We have one contact point in the municipality, but we want to expand that and start articulating a little bit more between the knowledge we get from the activists and the organizations on the ground and the researchers, like the ones here today in this panel, towards the municipality, and try to start gaining their attention on the importance of them getting involved in migration governance, basically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tiago. That actually leads on very well to our final question. If the speakers wouldn't mind summarizing kind of like, it'd be wonderful to hear in particular, like what challenge you face as an organization or working as part of an organization or as an activist. And on top of that, like, as Tiago mentioned, the kind of coming together in Sofia, if you could mention something which, like, what do you feel is needed to foster collaboration and like actions, like what is needed to support you? Let me know if you need to if you need me to repeat that. Yeah, better to repeat it. Sorry. Okay, so it would be wonderful if you could comment on what are the main challenges that you face in like working on the ground or working as a researcher or like as in bringing municipalities together, like one challenge and one thing that you would need to foster support and collaboration for the work you're doing? If we maybe go in the same order, like, or if we start with Felix, and I'll call names. Felix, any thoughts?
Okay, I'm going to be very brief. I think my impression, which is from the side, and one foot inside, one foot outside, and recently I spent a lot of time on my own. Okay, so doing kind of on-screen work. But my impression from my experience of 2 years collaborating both with international people and local Bulgarians is we are few and in a mess and not communicating very well with one another. I love what Tiago has presented of initiatives of involving municipalities, which are the most local, the most human state actor in these situations. Because I would think that in Bulgaria that would be extremely difficult, given the general attitude of most state organizations, which are kind of dismissing the problem, looking in their own or in a different direction, and pretending to do without doing. Okay, so I'm really hopeful for any sort of effort trying to get the actual people who have the responsibility to care for people involved in a real honest way. I find that is extremely difficult. But then I have very little experience with that. My experience with relating to local Bulgarians and people from international organizations is there are kind of two poles difficult to match with one another. Okay. It's like we are few and we don't get on well. I mean, there's very good will, but we are not managing to put our efforts together. I would say that many international people are here doing social tourism and they are going to leave soon and they don't understand the local circumstances. So I believe, I'm not talking definitely about Mirka or about other internationals in the room, but we do have that problem in the sense that, lack of connection to the local society, lack of understanding the local ways in which things work. And also local Bulgarian people, I am also kind of critical in terms of the general kind of negativism and kind of certain lack of commitment and so on. Okay, I know it is not easy because Bulgaria is an extremely difficult country to be an activist. Okay, so and I think we need a lot of coordination and communication among the few of us who are around. That's a little bit my impression.
Perfect. Thank you. Mirka, would you like to add to that, like a challenge that you face and something that would help support collaboration and action?
Yes, maybe to add something like different. Like in this last year, I was saying I was focusing more in Bulgaria, but actually I've been working also in Serbia and Bosnia along these years. And one thing that I've noticed, especially after 2023 and the big operation that has been done at the North Serbia border, is that like people are becoming more and more invisible. And this is something that's worrying me a lot because they try to be invisible in order not to be caught and end up in detention in Bulgaria, end up in detention in Serbia, because also now it's a big trend. And so the fact that they get more invisible expose them to more violence, of course, and no one that can also witness and advocate for them. And it brings that many organizations are closing their projects because there are not too many, there are no numbers to keep on working because there are no many people, for example, in camps. And also this trend that camps are going to be also, I'm thinking about Bosnia, some camps are going to be closed and we are opening detention center. So this is for me, and I think with the fact of migration, this trend will increase because I don't think that's in the rest of the people to be found, to be visible, to be fingerprinted. And so this is, of course, like something that worries me, and it's a big challenge, how to keep on giving them a support, formal or informal support, whatever. And personally, of course, there is the big challenge is the frustration to share an everyday like the life of the people in detention, and the fact that many times there is nothing to do than waiting 1.5 years, and very soon it will be 2 years. So this is for sure a challenge. As Félix was saying, yes, there is a lack maybe of connection, not only in Bulgaria, like I've been around, and for sure there are misunderstandings, for sure there is like different kind of approaches, but sometimes, yes, there is a bit of a lack of connection, and also a criminalization that maybe doesn't help too much, like this to be this network.
Hamid as well. I would. You're not on my screen, I'm afraid.
Just in the interest of time, Hamid and Victor, if you could speak very quickly your thoughts, and then we'll do our second half. Oh, and just for sorry, I was just going to say, for everyone in the chat, we were aiming to finish around 8:30 CEST. We may go a little bit over, but I think it's worth it. So we'll keep going.
Yeah. So I'll try to be very fast, and also I apologize. Last time I, in the middle of talking, the connection lost my Wi-Fi for some reason. So the challenges we have, the first of them is criminalization. That is happening a lot and very powerful, because there is not that much organization, civil society organization working on the topic of people on the move, and it's very easy for government to targeting them and put a lot of pressure over them. Beside it, I'm going to be very fast. Beside it, financial problem is a very big problem in Bulgaria, and also a lack of interest in civil society. So many of them, especially when it's come to border, majority of them decided to be silent, not to enter this field. They don't feel comfortable with this topic. And also another thing is that, like us and so many other organizations, we provide a lot of reports about what's happening in Bulgaria, but there was no action from Europe. So we just providing reports, nothing happened, and it's just give us like why we doing it. This is a big question for so many people in this field. Also, I think we need to put more pressure on states, Bulgarian states, from inside and from abroad. Both should happen at the same time, so it needs a lot of collaboration between international organization and local organization. And also something that recently happened, the low number of people in the camps and the detention center and other places forced so many organizations, international organizations, to leave Bulgaria because they don't have that much clients. But the remaining people become more vulnerable than before. So there is still some remaining people, but there is no organization provide them any services. So I think this is the main challenges for us for now.
Thank you. Victor?
Yes, I will try to be very brief. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, well, I would continue where Hamid stopped, and this is actually policies. I don't know if European Union and implementing new migration pact has calculated the effect of these measures, but Bulgaria it is subjected now under a huge corruption pressure. New migration pact will increase this, and we will have actually a system that is producing corruption pressure further and further on. It will produce market for smugglers, intermediaries, influence brokers, selective treatment, monitorization of human vulnerability, and then access to asylum will be some sort of a commodity that is traded. And this pact will achieve exactly the opposite of the intended effects. And we need to pressure European legislators to change this, because Bulgaria is already a very corrupted country, maybe the most corrupted in Europe, and we will have it even increased. This level of corruption will be increased. And of course, small NGOs have absolutely no capacity in Bulgaria to change the situation at the moment. Not only that, but when we are giving feedbacks, as Hamid mentioned, we don't receive any meaningful support, or at least some sort of recognition that actually the European policies are entirely, completely wrong. Actually, we have reports of members of the Interior Ministry involved in human trafficking, of state agency security operatives involved in human trafficking and corruptions. So what is the end effect of all this? I have no answer for myself, and I would like to know the European politicians what they are thinking about that. So thank you, that's for me.
Thank you, Victor. Tiago, I know you've already spoken on quite a lot about the work you're already doing, but if there's anything you'd like to add about the work or any specific challenges.
Yeah, I think there is one thing that I will pick up from Mirka, and Victor also mentioned this briefly, I think also Hamid, irregularity. So people facing this system, people will choose not to have contacts with authorities because they fear. The fear being in jail forever, they fear all the consequences that might happen, or being deported to places that they cannot be deported to. So people choosing that, this is something that we have been articulating also with municipalities, namely Berlin, Utrecht, mostly these two, who were the ones that anticipated this. Before the pact was approved, we were also in Brussels trying to bring the municipal voices to the Brussels authorities to convince them that these measures and the very, the non-existent safeguards that the pact concretely puts in place will generate more irregularity. And it is not in the interest of local authorities not to know who is there, what is happening there, and because this could generate just further problems for, like, in public health, or just like in general, municipalities are interested in knowing their population and granting rights to the population, because exclusion leads to homelessness, to health problems, and this is something that they have to deal with at the end of the day. So basically, they're not involved in the making of the policies, but they have to deal with the bad consequences. So the challenges for us is to make municipalities understand that, the ones that don't yet. So we leverage the knowledge that the municipalities that already understand that and deal with that, to try to convince others to start engaging in this sense. So yeah, this is one challenge. It's really not easy, and it's really like it's like the opposite of the activist work. It's not immediate. It's very laborious in the sense that it's kind of diplomatic. We need to go little by little and see if we can get them through some sort of arguments, and not others, because others will block our communication. So it's like our challenges in this sense is more related to that, and the time of this, the timing of the expected responses. So, but we will keep working on it, and hopefully we'll gain more access to Sofia. Let's see.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you so much to all of the speakers. It's been illuminating and also slightly devastating, and also just all of those things together.